Welcome to the next adventure in the prehistoric world. Today, we will follow the footsteps of Edmontosaurus, one of the last dinosaurs to roam the Earth before the Chicxulub asteroid struck and ended the Cretaceous period. But don't be too quick to think that Edmontosaurus was just a gentle herbivore. In this story, you will see a dinosaur that fought with sheer resilience, living in the final, turbulent days of its era, and witnessing some of the darkest moments the Earth had ever endured. The wind swept through the crimson pine forests. Thin layers of snow fell onto the damp soil, heralding a harsh winter ahead, the kind of winter Edmontosaurus had to face year after year. Against the silver-grey sky, a massive herd of Edmontosaurus was on the move, bodies stretching nearly 12 meters long, muscles packed into 4-ton frames, powerful hind legs capable of sprinting like an Olympic athlete, and long balancing tails swaying with every step. They were not solitary creatures. They were herd animals, relying on numbers to protect one another against fearsome predators like Tyrannosaurus rex and Dakotaraptor. At the center of the herd, a mature female led the way, seasoned, with deep brown eyes reflecting the icy sky. She had survived countless seasonal shifts, countless life or death chases. Faint scars across her back told stories of narrow escapes from jaws sharp as blades. The herd halted beside a large lake. Its surface lay still like a mirror, reflecting silhouettes of ancient plants, ginkgos, massive conifers, ferns as tall as humans. The scenery felt peaceful enough to make one believe that life at the end of the Cretaceous was still as serene as millennia before. But in this world, peace was only a fleeting illusion. At the forest's edge, dry leaves crackled. A faint scent of old blood and rotting flesh drifted through the air, followed by the sound of wind being torn apart. From the darkness, a pair of golden eyes emerged. T-Rex. The giant stood motionless, simply watching. It did not attack immediately, for T-Rex did not hunt with recklessness, but with deadly patience. A young Edmontosaurus wandered too far from the herd. In that very moment, T-Rex charged like an avalanche. Earth erupted. Trees shook. A thunderous roar rolled across the land. The juvenile panicked and bolted, its small legs not yet strong enough. The adults around it bellowed, creating a unified call, a deep, resonant sound that traveled for miles, used as a warning signal. But could their unity save the youngster? As the enormous shadow of T-Rex loomed across the ground, the herd leader, the seasoned female, rushed forward like a living mountain. She had no fangs, no claws, but she had the weight and strength forged through a lifetime of survival. With a fierce collision, she rammed into the T-Rex's flank, throwing the monster off balance for a heartbeat. Just a heartbeat, but enough for the herd to flee far away. T-Rex roared, not from pain, but from fury, because its prey had slipped from its grasp right before its eyes. In that moment, Edmontosaurus had done what few herbivores dared to do: challenge one of the most powerful predators ever to walk the planet. Night fell. Across the distant sky, a long streak of light, like a spear of fire, sliced through the atmosphere. None of the Edmontosaurus understood what it was, but you and I know. It was the omen of an ending era. And in the dark days to come, Edmontosaurus, a creature thought to be gentle, would show us that true strength in life does not always lie in claws and teeth, but in boundless endurance. Dawn was slowly spreading across the northern forests. The first light, thin as a sheet of golden silk, slipped through the snow-covered branches of ancient trees, making the ice on their leaves shimmer like diamonds. The Edmontosaurus herd had been moving all night after their encounter with the T-Rex, and now they paused to rest. The lead female, the one who had dared to ram straight into the T. Rex, the night before, stood at the highest point. Her breath drifted into pale white clouds before her. Her deep brown eyes reflected the morning sun, revealing a mix of vigilance and the steady resolve of a true leader. Edmontosaurus had no sharp teeth, no claws, no horns, no armor like Ankylosaurus, no fire-breathing throat like the dragons of human imagination. But they possessed something many other creatures did not: the strength of the herd and an endurance that seemed almost limitless. The sun climbed higher, illuminating the low grasslands coated in a thin layer of frost. This was the coastal plain of western North America, the world Edmontosaurus inhabited 66 million years ago. One by one, they lowered their heads to feed on ferns, shrubs, fallen pine needles, soft roots beneath the damp soil, and even tree bark, something their powerful jaws could crush as easily as biscuits. Did you know Edmontosaurus was one of the most sophisticated plant eaters in the ancient world? They possessed thousands of tiny teeth arranged into a grinding battery, functioning like a biological machine built for processing vegetation. Each chew turned layers of leaves into pulp, mixing with the cold vapor inside their mouths, rising as faint clouds like drifting smoke. The scene looked both simple and powerful, like a slow-motion fragment from a world that no longer exists. Edmontosaurus were migrants. Each year, they traveled hundreds of kilometers from the northern forests down to the southern plains, seeking places where food was more abundant. It was a long journey full of dangers, temperatures dropping so low that streams froze into slabs of ice, heavy snowfall blanketing the forests in white, and above all, predators always trailing close behind. Along the way, they had to cross vast marshlands. Despite their size, their strong hind legs allowed them to move across soft ground without sinking. But the young were different. Every step was a challenge. Every patch of deep mud could be an invitation to death. For this reason, the herd always formed a protective ring around the young, like a living fortress. The largest individuals walked on the outside. The juveniles stayed in the center, only their curious eyes peeking out at the world. It was the art of survival, honed through millions of years of evolution. By afternoon, as the sun sank behind distant mountains, shadows stretched long, and the chill of night spread across the air. This was the moment predators became most active. To the east, within the dense pine forest, a pack of Dakotaraptors was on the move. They were not as large as T. Rex, but their speed and coordination made them terrifying adversaries. Footsteps light as wind, dark shapes gliding between tree trunks. A raspy call, the signal of the raptors. The lead female sensed the danger instantly. She let out a deep, resonant call, a sound no human could ever imitate, warning the entire herd to accelerate. And suddenly the world burst into a scene of chaos and power. The ground trembled with the footsteps of dozens of Edmontosaurus. Snow exploded beneath their heavy strides. Wind whipped past their ears like cracking whips. The raptors gave chase, but Edmontosaurus were not weak. When they reached full speed, they could run over 40 kilometers per hour, enough to outrun most predators. One reckless raptor sprinted too close. Immediately, a large male swung its tail. The strike slammed through the air like a falling tree. The raptor was flung aside, rolling through the snowy ground, leaving behind a long trail of bright red. The attack ended swiftly, and the herd continued their journey, as if the pursuit had merely been another natural part of life. Night settled over the clearing where the herd stopped. The night sky of the late Cretaceous was not entirely dark. It shimmered with purplish-blue hues of ice, pale gold from ancient stars, and sometimes the glow of auroras, born from Earth's stronger geomagnetic activity at the time. The Edmontosaurus lay close together for warmth. The adults formed a great circle, with the young in the middle, shielded from the wind and from the golden eyes watching somewhere in the darkness. Outside that circle lay a frightening silence. No hoofbeats of Centrosaurus, no nighttime calls of Troodon, no distant roars of T-Rex. The world was still, but unease lingered like the dew of night. The lead female lifted her head toward the sky and sensed something different. The air was thicker today, colder than in previous years. The wind carried a sweet, metallic scent, the smell of dust from regions the herd had never reached. It was a sign that the earth was beginning to change, changing in ways no dinosaur could comprehend. Yet even so, the life of Edmontosaurus continued, for their instinct was simple: live, move, protect the herd, and wait for the next dawn. Before the new light returned to the frozen sky, the Edmontosaurus herd was already prepared to leave. Their resilience was proof that even in the final moments of an era, life always found a way to go on. Edmontosaurus were not warriors, but they were extraordinary survivors, and their journey had only just begun. This morning was unlike any morning before it. The sunlight appeared as a thin streak of fire, bright yet fragile, almost swallowed by the thick grey fog covering the sky. The tall pine trees drooped heavily, coated in frost, and every breath from each Edmontosaurus dissipated into drifting white mist the moment it met the air. Within this cold, muted landscape, the Edmontosaurus herd was entering the most important time of the year, the breeding season. Even though the age was slowly descending into darkness, life still had to continue. Edmontosaurus did not lay their eggs randomly. They chose areas with soft soil and minimal ice, often near ancient rivers or streams where underground springs were warm enough to prevent complete freezing. Today, the herd had reached such a place, an open stretch of land, surrounded by low pines and thick reeds. The ground was reddish-brown, warmed by the waters flowing beneath. This was the nesting ground their ancestors had used for thousands of years. The lead female knelt down, using her forelimbs to dig powerful strokes, forming a large pit. The others did the same, and soon the entire area was filled with oval-shaped nests, resembling countless small open wells. Edmontosaurus were not only powerful runners or brave defenders against predators, they were also magnificent architects of nature. The soil was dug deep, lined with pine needles and dried ferns, covered with fresh earth to retain heat. Finally, the eggs, each the size of a basketball, with thick ivory-colored shells, were carefully laid inside. In the stillness of the forest, the herd's breaths rose rhythmically, blending with the sound of shifting soil, forming a primal symphony, the music of survival. Breeding was the most vulnerable stage for Edmontosaurus. Eggs had no teeth, no legs, could not run, could not hide. The hope of the entire herd, the future itself, rested inside these fragile nests. Worry was inevitable. Troodon, small but intelligent, often lurked around nesting grounds to steal eggs. Primitive birds with sharp talons could swoop down at any moment, and worst of all, sometimes nature itself was the most fearsome enemy. On the third day, the sky abruptly darkened. Northern winds swept in with skin-cutting cold. Large chunks of ice fell from the heavy pine branches. A blizzard was coming. The Edmontosaurus herd immediately surrounded the nests, forming massive living barricades. The largest individuals stood on the outside, blocking the wind. The nesting females stayed close to the eggs, their breath and body heat warming the soil beneath. Snow fell in a white torrent. The wind howled in waves like the morning cries of the mountains. Yet the herd stood firm, unmoving, silent, enduring like ancient fortresses in the heart of the storm. Nature attacked from every direction, yet they did not retreat. For within those nests, a new generation was preparing to enter the world. 3 weeks later, the sun finally shone brighter. The blizzard had passed, and the land was now blanketed in sparkling, melting snow. The air carried the scent of fresh earth and warm spring water, a sign that the moment had arrived. A faint crack sounded, then another, as if the ground itself was softly breathing. On top of each egg, thin fractures began to appear. A piece of shell flipped open, and a tiny, amber-colored snout emerged. 2 round black eyes, shiny like sesame seeds, opened wide, reflecting their first glimpse of light. A newborn, Edmontosaurus, a small creature that carried within it the strength forged through millions of years of evolution. One by one, the hatchlings emerged, legs unsteady, wobbling toward their mothers. The adults lowered their heads and let out deep, resonant calls, a sound only Edmontosaurus could create. It was the language of care, of instinctive protection. The scene was beautiful, yet painfully bittersweet, because none of the herd knew that these children were born in the final years of the Cretaceous, when the shadow of the asteroid had already begun to darken the future. Before the joy could settle, danger arrived. A harsh screech echoed from above. Then a dark shape tore across the sky. An Apsaravis, an ancient predatory bird, dove like an arrow, talons extended, aiming at a hatchling just outside its nest. The lead female roared, not the fierce roar of a T-Rex, but a deep, far-reaching warning that shook the ground. She charged, swinging her long tail with tremendous force. The bird panicked, veering upward, but not fast enough. The second strike hit its wing. Apsaravis crashed into the snow, spinning in a flurry of white. It rolled several times before disappearing into the underbrush, leaving a faint trail of blood. The Edmontosaurus herd tightened their protective circle. The hatchlings trembled beside their mothers, their round black eyes shining with fear but also with the spark of life, the same spark Edmontosaurus had safeguarded for millions of years. As the sun climbed higher, the first hatchlings grew accustomed to the light and cold of the world. They took their first steps, wobbling, then toddling, then falling, then rising again. But amidst this joy, the sky revealed something strange. A dark crimson cloud stretched across the southern horizon. It was not the color of an ordinary storm. It carried an eerie glow, as if the sky itself were burning somewhere far away. The lead female stared at it for a long time. She did not understand, but she felt something animals often sense more clearly than humans. A great change was approaching, something her instincts recognized, but could not name. The days of peace were nearing their end, and the Edmontosaurus herd was about to face the most difficult chapter their species had ever endured. Noon in the late Cretaceous was no longer as warm as it had been millions of years before. The sunlight was now faint, as if filtered through a sheet of frosted glass. The sky was still blue, but a pale, washed-out blue, no longer the vibrant color of the ancient world. The Edmontosaurus herd was moving away from the nesting grounds. Dozens of hatchlings ran at the center of the herd, their tiny feet thudding on the damp earth with soft, splashing sounds. The lead female walked beside them, her eyes scanning every bush, every distant noise. The breeding season was over. Now was the time to protect the new generation, and this was also the moment when the most powerful predator on Earth would appear. In the western forest, among pine trunks thick as temple pillars, something was watching silently. The scent of the Edmontosaurus herd drifted through the wind, mixing with the smell of wet soil, keeping the giant predator's attention locked. Tyrannosaurus Rex. It did not hurry. T-Rex did not need to hurry. A giant, 4 meters tall, more than 12 meters long, weighing nearly 9 tons, moving slowly was enough for the ground to tremble like war drums. Its clear golden eyes pierced the distance, fixed on the Edmontosaurus herd. It remembered this herd. It remembered the lead female that rammed into its flank the other night. And now, with newborn hatchlings, this herd had become the perfect target. The patience of a T-Rex was the nightmare of all herbivores. The young Edmontosaurus, only a few weeks old, had already begun learning how to keep up with the herd. They ran awkwardly, sometimes stumbling, sometimes pausing to watch ancient butterflies fluttering past, only to be called back by their mothers with deep, warm sounds. Each day, they grew at an astonishing rate. Their small bodies would steadily gain weight, sometimes nearly 4-5 kilograms a day. But no matter how fast they grew, it was never fast enough to outrun the rising dangers. That afternoon, as the herd crossed a broad marsh, The sound of splashing water made the T-Rex decide to act. It stepped out from the forest. Thudding vibrations echoed through the ground. The adults recognized it instantly. Every large head lifted at once, as though the earth itself had sounded an alarm. The lead female roared, forcing the herd to run, but the T-Rex had already charged. It wasn't as fast as smaller predators, but its explosive bursts of speed were enough to send terror through any creature alive. Each of its steps equaled 3 steps of a young Edmontosaurus. The hunt had begun. The moment the T-Rex lunged forward, the adult Edmontosaurus immediately formed their familiar defensive formation. Several large individuals ran to the back of the herd, blocking the T-Rex like a living wall. 2 adult males swung their massive tails, creating gusts of wind that lashed the ground like whips. The T-Rex roared and attacked. It did not stop. In its eyes burned cold calculation. A single bite, teeth 30 centimeters long, were ready to snap shut. But an adult male Edmontosaurus crashed in from the side, slamming its entire massive body against the T-Rex. The impact sounded like 2 boulders colliding. Earth flew. Branches quivered. The T-Rex staggered for a fraction of a second, and that was all the Edmontosaurus herd needed. The lead female signaled, "Run." The herd turned sharply, driving the hatchlings into the tall reeds. Awkward as they were, the young ones followed their mothers, eyes wide with fear, but their light bodies carried them faster than expected. Yet the T-Rex did not give up. It roared again, the sound scattering birds into the sky. Then it charged forward, muscles rippling beneath its rugged skin. One adult male Edmontosaurus was caught by the tail. Blood sprayed. The male bellowed in agony, thrashing its tail with all its remaining strength to break free. Blood stained the snow red. There was no time for pain. It stumbled after the herd, dragging its wounded tail. But that very wound diverted the T-Rex's attention, and the hatchlings gained several dozen more meters of distance. When the Edmontosaurus herd entered the tall reeds, thick enough to reach their heads, the world changed entirely. Dense reeds blocked vision, but they also shielded the young. The T-Rex stopped at the reed's edge. It was not the kind to charge blindly into a place with limited visibility. With such a massive body, entering the reeds would strip it of its advantage. So it stood there, inhaling deeply, the wind carrying the scent of blood and the warm breath of the Edmontosaurus herd. It could hear their heartbeats, and at that moment the instinct of the titan spoke. The T-Rex did not attack recklessly. It circled, a tactic few realized T-Rex once used. It moved around the reed field to intercept the Edmontosaurus at the exit. The lead female sensed this. She gave another warning call, deep, long, filled with utmost urgency, then led the herd to change direction, heading straight into the marsh. A dangerous decision. The mud was deep, icy cold. The hatchlings could get stuck. The adults could collapse from exhaustion, but it was the only choice. The marsh stretched before them like a vast graveyard. Mud-colored water churned with small floating bubbles. The smell of rot and wet leaves flooded their senses. The large Edmontosaurus entered first. Water rose to their bellies. The mud beneath their feet was slick, trying to swallow their weight. The hatchlings began to shiver from the cold, but the herd did not slow. The T-Rex reached the reed's edge, its golden eyes glinting. It realized the herd was moving into the marsh, a dangerous place, but one it least wanted to follow. Its 9-ton body made sinking into mud inevitable. Even so, it stepped toward the edge, testing the water. Its foot sank to the ankle. It pulled back, mud clinging in thick clumps. The T-Rex roared, not in anger, but in frustration. It could not continue the chase. The Edmontosaurus herd had escaped, but the cost was tremendous. The wounded male had grown too weak. Blood seeped endlessly from its tail. In the middle of the marsh, it collapsed. The lead female turned back, letting out a long, low call of farewell. The male looked at the herd one last time, then slowly sank beneath the deep mud, As its legs finally gave out, a warrior fallen for the herd. The Edmontosaurus eventually crossed the marsh and entered the southern forest, where temporary safety awaited. But as they lifted their heads, the sky darkened once more, not with storm clouds, not with snow, but with long streaks of light crossing the heavens like falling stars, but brighter, denser, and far more terrifying. Nature was warning them. The world was changing, and what was coming would be more fearsome than even the T-Rex. After the terrifying chase with the T-Rex and the heartbreaking crossing of the swamp, the Edmontosaurus herd finally entered the southern forest, where ancient streams cut through forests of pine and reeds, where the cold winds had softened. But the land that had once been a promised refuge now carried a strange atmosphere, something the herd could not explain, yet all of them felt uneasy. The sky was changing color. That was the first sign. In the days after leaving the swamp, the Edmontosaurus herd noticed that sunlight no longer looked the same. Morning was no longer truly bright, as if filtered through a thin veil of cloudy orange. In the afternoon, the light shifted to a blood red, spilling across every tree trunk as though the forest was smoldering quietly on the horizon. And at night, the sky was not black, but a smoky, purple, dim and hazy, as if shrouded by drifting ash. These phenomena cannot be understood through human language, but for the Edmontosaurus, they could feel it. The world was out of rhythm. The lead female lifted her head toward the sky. In her deep, dark eyes, there was something like worry or instinct. The hatchlings were different. They ran, played, ate young leaves, completely unaware that the sky above them was a silent herald of disaster drawing near. Less than a week later, the changes became unmistakable. The shrubs along the streams, the main food source of the Edmontosaurus, began to wilt, not from frost, not from pests, but because nighttime temperatures were dropping sharply and the air had turned dry and strange. Ferns darkened, the moss on the ground faded to ashy brown. Many conifers showed signs of shedding early. The herd began to struggle. Each day, they were forced to travel farther to find enough food, sometimes over 20 kilometers, across hills, through lowlands, often fleeing predators along the way. The hatchlings began to grow exhausted. Their once eager, rapid steps now felt heavy, drained of excitement. The lead female knew that if the plants continued to die, for every 10 hatchlings, 3 or 4 would not make it through the season. And that was only the beginning. One afternoon, the sky suddenly darkened, as if a colossal blanket had been dropped over the world. The wind stopped. The forest went silent. Ancient birds did not sing. Even the stream seemed to pause. Then, the rain fell, but it was not ordinary rain. The drops were tinged with yellow, and when they touched leaves, they produced a faint, sizzling sound. Leaves curled and burned at the edges. Even the thick hide of an adult Edmontosaurus reddened where a few drops landed. It was mild acid rain, an event recorded in the geological layers of the late Cretaceous. The herd panicked and ran deeper into the forest, seeking shelter under massive trunks. The lead female stood at the front, shielding the hatchlings beneath her belly. Raindrops hit her back, scattering into grey flecks like metallic dust. The rain lasted nearly an hour. When it stopped, the ground was streaked with pale yellow, releasing a strange smell like heated metal. Such rains became more frequent in the weeks that followed. While the shifting climate made food scarce, another predator began to stalk the herd, an adult Dakotaraptor. Unlike the T-Rex, powerful but slow, Dakotaraptors were fast, intelligent, and hunted in coordinated packs. That night, as the Edmontosaurus herd rested in a valley, a sharp, high call echoed from somewhere in the darkness. The lead female reacted instantly. She gave a warning call, deep, long, urgent. The reeds shuddered. Then 3 Dakotaraptors burst from the forest, like 3 black arrows, each nearly 6 meters long, almost 2 meters tall, with curved talons sharp as death scythes. They dove toward the herd, aiming directly for the smallest hatchlings. One hatchling was cornered against a rock. Trembling, a raptor leaped. The lead female charged. The impact sent dirt exploding. The raptor staggered back, dust and sand flying everywhere. But the other two attacked from the sides, their pack tactic lethally effective. A male Edmontosaurus rushed in to help, swinging its tail with such force that a nearby tree snapped in half. The cracking sound echoed through the night like a scream. For minutes, the battle was chaos. Dirt flying, the bellows of Edmontosaurus, the sharp shrieks of the raptors, and the booming, war-drum thuds of tails striking tree trunks. By the time the sky turned ashy grey before dawn, the Dakota raptor pack was forced to withdraw hungry, but unable to break the herd's strength. But the small hatchling had been injured in the leg, which meant only one thing. It would not survive long in a world growing more hostile each day. A few days after the attack, the herd continued south. But no matter where they went, one thing stayed the same. The light was fading. Every morning, the sun appeared as a faint red smear behind heavy fog. Every afternoon, the temperature dropped so quickly that stream water froze into thin sheets of ice. Night fell earlier, longer, colder, as if the planet was slipping into a deep sleep. The hatchlings grew taller, but signs of malnutrition appeared. Thinner bodies, drier skin, weaker steps. The lead female grew ever more tense. She could feel a terrifying upheaval spreading across the land, an upheaval her instincts could sense but could not name. One frigid evening, as the herd stopped beneath a massive tree, the lead female looked again to the sky. Above, strange long streaks of light stretched across the heavens like slow-falling lines of fire. She did not know what they were, but you and I know. Chicxulub was drawing near. The night wind swept through the frozen forest, carrying with it the faint smell of ash. A thin grey mist quietly blanketed the ground, gliding over the leafless trunks, slipping into every crevice of rock, settling across the backs of the Edmontosaurus herd as they slept fitfully. None of them knew that this was the first dust blown in from a chain of small meteor impacts the early fragments, the advanced scouts before Chicxulub arrived. But their instincts still sensed that something was terribly wrong. Recent mornings no longer carried the songs of ancient birds, no longer held the murmurs of insects, no longer heard the gentle bubbling of the stream. Everything was silent. When the Edmontosaurus herd awoke, the ground was covered in a fine grey dust. The hatchlings sneezed as they stepped into it. The adults used their snouts to brush the dust from the dry leaves, trying to find whatever scraps of food remained. But the forest had changed color. The ferns had turned grey-brown. Shrubs had shed their leaves in great waves. Even the hardiest plants now drooped and withered. This was the result of abnormal temperature drops and fine atmospheric dust blocking sunlight. Plants could no longer photosynthesize enough to live. The entire ecosystem began to wobble at its foundation. The Edmontosaurus herd was forced to move constantly. But the farther they traveled, the more they realized. The world was dying. 3 days later, the herd reached a large river, once clear and full of green algae. But now it was a cloudy brown tinged with red, like water that had been boiled and left to cool. A curious hatchling approached the riverbank. It took a small sip, then immediately stepped back, shuddering. The water smelled metallic and tasted strangely bitter. It was mildly acidified water, a phenomenon documented in many sediment layers from the end of the Cretaceous. The lead female stepped forward and tested the water with her foot. Murky swirls rose to the surface, spreading grey streaks across the river. Undrinkable, unreliable. The herd had to move on, legs growing weaker. their warm breath mixing with the cold, dust-filled air. That afternoon, the sky turned a torn shade of red-purple. The Edmontosaurus herd stopped near a valley, trying to eat the last remaining ferns. Then from afar came a deep, resonant sound like thunder rolling in the distance. T-Rex. But this time, it did not appear with the confidence of a ruler. It was thinner than before. The skin around its belly sagged. Dust clung to its scales. Its once bright golden eyes were now clouded and weary. The T-Rex was starving. It had few choices left. Instinct pushed it toward the Edmontosaurus herd. But when it came too close, the lead female stepped forward, blocking the hatchlings. Desperate, yet unbroken, she released a long, low call, the sound of a leader ready to fight to her final breath. The T-Rex stood still. The wind blew. Ash drifted in the air. In that moment, neither attacked. Prey and predator, both exhausted. At last, as if understanding that this herd was too strong to challenge in its weakened state, the T-Rex turned away, taking heavy, weary steps back into the deep forest. A strange, hauntingly beautiful moment. Two species once mortal enemies sharing the same despair. In the weeks that followed, the collapse of the ecosystem accelerated. The sun became nothing more than a faint blur behind a thick veil of dust. Plants died in vast numbers. The air grew colder even though it should have been a warm season. The Edmontosaurus herd moved farther south in search of food, but each day they ate only a fraction of what they once consumed. The hatchlings grew slowly, thin bodies, bones visible beneath their skin. The adults were exhausted. The herd survived through endurance alone, the only strength they had left. On a grey, ash-filled morning, as the fog mixed with dust into opaque layers that choked the forest, the lead female sensed something strange again. The ground trembled lightly, not strong. Just a small pulse, but it repeated twice, then 3 times, like a knocking from deep within the earth. The other Edmontosaurus felt it too. They raised their heads, worry darkening their eyes. Suddenly, the wind shifted. From the southeast, the sky began to brighten in an unnatural way, not the light of the sun, but a white gold glow spreading outward like a tear ripped across the heavens. The lead female froze, staring at the strange light. Her instincts told her, this is not the light of life. This is the light of an ending. On the final day, the world brightened strangely. A white light washed over everything, yet it was not warm. It was cold, harsh, and blinding, turning the forest into a pale, ghostly mirror. Ash coiled through the air. The wind carried the scent of sulfur. The ground shook more violently than on any day before. The Edmontosaurus herd huddled close, their final circle of survival. The hatchlings pressed against their mothers. The adults tightened their muscles just to stay standing. In the southeastern sky, a fireball brighter than the sun appeared. It trailed a long, blazing red tail, not like a shooting star, but like a shard of the sun itself hurtling toward Earth. The lead female stared at the burning sphere. She did not understand, but instinct shared by every creature. Before a cataclysm whispered a single truth. You cannot run. You cannot hide. All you can do is wait. And their world was about to be torn apart in only a few minutes. The sky glowed white, as if the sun had risen directly overhead. But this light was not warm. It was piercing, cold, and metallic. There were no shadows of trees, no silhouettes of mountains. Everything seemed to be erased by a strange glow, like a powerful lamp shining into a thick fog. The Edmontosaurus herd huddled tightly in the valley. No one moved, no one called, no one fed. All eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the fireball was swelling larger by the second. Shining so bright, it tore open the atmosphere, leaving behind a blazing trail like a red fracture across the sky. The lead female raised her head, her brown eyes reflecting the blinding light. In those eyes lay a primal terror that surpassed the language of any species, a fear only an apocalypse could create. And then, far to the southeast, where the Yucatan Peninsula lies today, the fireball struck the earth at 20 kilometers per second. No one heard it scream. No one saw the moment of impact. The light was too blinding, and the force too great for any sense to comprehend. But only seconds later, the earth exploded. On the horizon, a white flash brighter than the sun erupted. It didn't expand evenly, it ripped outward, like an enormous firework detonating in all directions at once. In that instant, the energy released was 1 billion times greater than the Hiroshima bomb. Creatures near the impact site were vaporized at once, and the shockwave began to spread. Faster than sound, the Edmontosaurus herd was thousands of kilometers from ground zero, but the shockwave was still strong enough to decide their fate. A few seconds after the light dimmed, the air compressed, the wind stopped, the world fell silent, as if the entire planet was taking one final breath. Then came the sound, the greatest sound Earth had ever produced. Boo, oh, whoa, oh, oh, oh. Not a single blast, but hundreds, thousands layered together, the roar of 10,000 mountains collapsing at once. The valley shook as if lifted into the air and slammed back down. The earth cracked into long, jagged fissures. Water from nearby streams shot upward like columns. Hatchling Edmontosaurus tumbled onto the dirt, trembling, their dark eyes wide with panic. The adults staggered, bodies swaying violently with each tremor. The lead female struggled to stay upright, digging her feet deep into the soft ground. She let out a deep call, not a warning signal, but the voice of a mother calling her young in the most desperate moment. The herd closed in tightly, trying to keep one another from falling. But the shockwave wasn't done. 2 seconds later, the wind hit. Not wind, but a wall of air hotter than fire, stronger than a hurricane, faster than anything they had ever known. It tore through the forest like an invisible beast. Ancient trees with trunks 2 meters wide snapped like twigs. Sand and soil spiraled into violent dust storms. Huge boulders were hurled hundreds of meters. The Edmontosaurus herd staggered sideways. A hatchling was swept off its feet, rolling across the ground, crying out in pain. The lead female lunged forward, planting herself like a living shield, blocking the little one with her own massive body. The wind struck so hard that her thick skin quivered. Ash stung her eyes until she closed them tight, but she did not step back. In the storm of destruction, strength did not come from teeth or claws, but from endurance. After the shockwave passed, the sky darkened, so quickly it felt like someone had switched off the Sunday. Not night, but the darkness of ash. Billions of tons of debris hurled into the atmosphere formed a massive shroud that blocked the sunlight. Within minutes, day turned into night. Within hours, the entire planet sank into shadow. The Edmontosaurus herd trembled under the suffocating black sky. The hatchlings pressed against their mothers, warm breath shuddering in their chests. The lead female looked around. There was no path, no trees, no outline of the mountains. The world had only one color left, the color of ash. Then small burning fragments began to fall from the sky, pieces of molten rock thrown high into the atmosphere, now returning as meteor showers. Some struck the ground with a hiss, releasing a choking sulfur smell. The Edmontosaurus tried to avoid them, but they knew this was only the beginning. Global temperatures began to rise, not from the ground, but from the sky. Friction from thousands of tiny meteorites burning through the atmosphere created an immense layer of heat that warmed the air. Within hours, the world became a furnace. No one could escape. Even in the valley, temperatures climbed sharply, causing dry leaves to burst into flame. Fire spread. The forest lit up in red, reflecting off swirling black ash. The Edmontosaurus herd ran, not from hunger, not from predators, but because the entire world was burning beneath their feet. The lead female ran at the front, her thick skin giving her more resistance to the heat than the young. But even she felt the burning air searing through her hide, scorching her lungs. On the first long night after the impact, the Edmontosaurus herd gathered beneath a massive cliff, a place the flames could not reach. The hatchlings huddled together, their bodies trembling. The adults surrounded them, exhausted, some collapsing where they stood. The lead female stood at the center, eyes still open, listening for the faint sounds of the earth, the wind, the fragile traces of life that remained. Ash fell like black snow. Red fire smoldered in the distance. The sky flickered in pulses of heat. And in that moment, Edmontosaurus, the gentle herbivore of the northern plains, faced the greatest trial in the history of evolution, surviving the day the earth went dark. After the day the sky shattered, the world sank into a night unlike anything it had ever known. There was no dawn, no green, no birdsong, no warmth from the Sunday, only ash, cold wind, and a sky drowned in darkness, draped over every living creature like a mourning veil for the entire planet. Time lost its meaning. Morning, noon, evening, all blended into a single grey-black mass, thick and heavy like smoke. Ash from the impact cloaked the atmosphere, blocking every ray of sunlight. The surface of Earth was lit only by faint, smouldering embers from dead forests. The Edmontosaurus herd now walked in almost absolute darkness. The young trembled, unable to see anything but the blurry shadow of their mother. The adults used sound to call to one another, releasing deep, resonant rumbles to find direction in a world without color. Dry, cold winds carried dust that lashed against their skin, stinging their eyes. Some of the young didn't even realize they were living through night, for they had never seen true daylight. The long night brought cold, and the cold fell as rapidly as if it had dropped straight from the heavens. With no sunlight to warm it, the earth plummeted into rapid cooling. Temperatures fell at a terrifying pace. Streams froze. Leaves grew coated in a thin layer of ice. The breath of Edmontosaurus thickened into white clouds. The ground hardened like metal. Edmontosaurus had survived northern climates before, but this cold, this was something new entirely. A young one collapsed from exhaustion. It panted, its tiny chest rising and falling beneath the soot-darkened hide. The herd leader bent down and pressed its body against the calf, sharing what little warmth remained. But the cold swept through like 1,000 blades, slowly extinguishing the small flame of life inside. The herd moved on. One small, silent body remained behind, buried beneath the ever-deepening ash. Plant life, the foundation of every ecosystem, was now dying en masse. No sunlight, no photosynthesis. No photosynthesis, the entire food chain lost its energy source. Ferns turned brittle. Shrubs shed every leaf, leaving only blackened branches. Ancient conifers died upright, their sap frozen into stiff amber streaks. The Edmontosaurus herd moved through what had once been a thriving forest, now transformed into a graveyard of trees. The adults tried biting dead twigs, tried chewing bitter bark things they would never have touched before. But bark could not sustain a creature weighing several tons. A grown male collapsed, its forelegs folding beneath it. Its breath weakened. Then, silence. No roars, no calls, only the whistling wind through a forest of death. Even Tyrannosaurus Rex, the ruler of the valley, was now dying. One evening, as the Edmontosaurus herd crossed a rocky plain, they saw a large, dark shadow cast across the frozen ground. Rex. It was so gaunt that its ribs pressed sharply against its rough skin. Its yellow eyes were dull, dry from lack of water. Its breath rasped. It did not roar. It did not charge. It did not give chase. It only stood there, as though it were a stone monument to its own species. It watched the Edmontosaurus herd pass, but it no longer had the strength to hunt, no strength to bite, no strength to rise in fury. The herd leader hesitated for a moment. Two species that once fought to the death now stood together in the same fate. Despair in the face of a shared extinction. Rex turned away, staggering step by step, disappearing into the swirling black ash. It, too, was walking toward the end of its lineage. By the 20th day after the impact, the ash was so thick that, when Edmontosaurus walked, their feet sank to the ankles. When they exhaled, the dust mixed with moisture to form wisps of pale smoke. When they tried to eat the dried leaves, ash coated their mouths, burning their throats like sandpaper. Another young one fell, then another. The herd's footsteps grew quieter. Its calls grew weaker. The herd leader, its whole body coated in dust, its eyes darkened, kept trying to lead them south, hoping some plants still survived. But the farther they went, the colder the wind grew. The wind carried a scent like hot stone and metal, a sign of an atmosphere thrown into chaos. And then, on a morning that was not morning, a heavy grey dawn, the herd crossed a valley of cracked stone. The herd leader stopped. Before it lay a wasteland. No trees, no streams, no life, only ash and rock. Wind swept across the ash field, shaping faint black whirlwinds. This was no longer a place for the living. The leader turned back. Its eyes settled on the survivors, only half the herd that existed just weeks before. The young clung to their mother's legs. The adults were so thin their bones showed through their skin. It understood. It felt the truth no creature ever wishes to face. This planet no longer belonged to Edmontosaurus, no longer belonged to dinosaurs, no longer belonged to the rulers of millions of years. And above the ashen sky, someday, light would return, but not for them. Ash continued to fall like black snow. Cold winds blew across the dead land, curling clouds of dust drifting through the grey stone forests. The world had become so silent that even a single breath seemed to echo back from the earth itself. The Edmontosaurus herd kept moving, though they no longer knew where to go. Instinct told them to seek warmer ground, a place with food. But each step only led them to a simple and cruel truth. Life was draining from the earth. In the days after the impact, darkness could have caused panic among creatures. But now, darkness had become the new sky. No one waited for dawn anymore. No one looked up for light. The herd leader, its dark brown eyes always shining in the night, had now grown accustomed to this endless gloom. Its eyelids stuck with dust, each blink heavy, but it still looked, still searched, still hoped. A hope that grew ever smaller, like a flame about to be snuffed out in the cold wind. Behind it, the young moved slower. They had grown a few months older, but lack of light and food had left them so thin that their bones showed beneath grey ash skin. Yet they tried to follow their mother, not because they understood what was happening, not because they knew what awaited them ahead, but because of the will to survive, the instinct that all life carries, even if only a drop remains. As the herd passed through the southern valley, they came upon a strange sight, a forest frozen in death, not rotted wood, not fallen leaves, but an entire forest scorched by atmospheric heat, then covered in ash, turning everything into black-grey stone-like statues. This had once been a place where Edmontosaurus fed on young leaves in spring, a place where raptors hunted, a place where T-Rex patrolled at night. Now, all that remained were shadows. The wind passed through the dry branches with a sound like clashing metal. The herd stood before that forest as if gazing upon its own history, now turned to stone. One dim grey morning, if it could still be called morning, when cold winds blew from the sea, an adult Edmontosaurus in the herd collapsed. It had fought for weeks, scraping by on bark and dead moss. But now, its legs could no longer support its heavy body. The herd leader turned. It made a low sound, like a farewell. The other lay down in the soft ash, eyes open, staring at a starless sky, breath slowing, no pain, only absolute exhaustion. Ash fell on its body, covering it little by little, as if the planet itself were gently tucking it into its final sleep. The herd moved on, slower, quieter. Only a few remained beside the leader. The young still walked, though their stomachs ached and their legs trembled. A week later, the herd finally reached a lowland once the site of a wide lake. Now the lake had dried. Only black mud remained at the bottom, frozen and cracked into countless fissures. Yet there was something strange here. The wind felt a little warmer, perhaps from underground hot springs. Perhaps the geology of this area was more stable. The herd leader led the remaining members down to the dry lake bed, a low area, sheltered from wind, slightly warmer. It lay down, its massive body sighing, legs folded beneath a layer of ash. The young nestled close to it. The remaining adults formed a circle around them. No one ran anymore. No one searched for food anymore. There was nowhere better to go. Ash continued to fall, light and steady, like a layer of black snow covering the shoulders of the entire herd. The leader closed its eyes, not from exhaustion, but from acceptance. It had led the herd through predators, through firestorms, through endless night, through the cold. But there was one thing it could not overcome: the end of an entire world. Each breath grew heavier, each heartbeat slowed, yet its face remained calm. And when ash covered its head, back, and rough hide, it opened its eyes one last time, not to seek escape, but to look at the young sleeping against it. Then it closed its eyes, as lightly as a leaf falling in the cold wind. As the entire herd drifted into its final sleep, the world fell into absolute silence. No more thunderous footsteps, no more herd calls, no more chewing of leaves or the chasing cries of T-Rex. Only ash falling steadily, cold wind sweeping across the empty land, and the sky black as ink. Yet beneath that layer of ash, in that seemingly endless darkness, a miracle was about to occur. The earth would begin to renew itself. Life would sprout again. A new era would emerge, not for Edmontosaurus, but thanks to their end. They did not vanish in vain. They became part of the planet in the truest sense. Their flesh nourished the soil. Their ash nourished the plants. And the story of their resilient survival would become fossilized memory, waiting tens of millions of years for humanity to discover. A life ended, but life itself in its own way continued. Ash continued to fall. The sky remained cold and grey, and in that deep valley, where the Edmontosaurus herd lay like silent mounds of earth, the wind blew only with the softest breaths. No footsteps, no herd calls, no movement of massive, warm bodies, only the stillness of an era that had come to an end. And then, time began to flow, not in days or hours, but in months, years, thousands of years, as the earth has always moved slowly, steadily, silently. After many months, the thick ash in the atmosphere began to settle. The tiny particles that once blocked the light gradually fell to the ground like layers of memory dust. One morning, if it could still be called morning, a thin thread of light pierced through the ash clouds. Not strong, not brilliant, but the first true light since the impact. If there had been an Edmontosaurus alive to see it, perhaps it would have felt its heart beat faster. But the lowland, where the herd had remained, was still. Only the ash covering their bodies shimmered faintly in the new light, like stone models sleeping beneath a rejuvenated sun. Within that ash-covered soil, some things still slept deeply. Seeds. Not all plants had perished. Many ancient species had hard seeds capable of withstanding months of cold and darkness. And when light returned, these seeds began to sprout. The first green fern shoots pushed through the dust, reaching upward like tiny fingers of life. Then came silvery green moss, then small pine saplings. These green shoots grew right beside the first fossilized bones of Edmontosaurus, as if new life were softly saying, "I rise from your legacy." What is one? Not all creatures had vanished. In deep caves, between warm rock crevices, there were ancient small birds, tiny hand-sized mammals, small lizards and amphibians, insects living in decayed leaves, and microorganisms in hot springs. They were tiny, fragile, yet their smallness allowed them to survive the catastrophe that the giants could not. They needed less food, less light, and they adapted faster. From these small creatures, the earth would write its next chapter. Years passed. Wind covered ash with more ash. Soil covered soil. Rain mixed the ash into geological layers. The soft bodies of Edmontosaurus decomposed, but their bones' strong pillars were preserved in the moist earth. Each long bone, rib, leg bone, gradually replaced by minerals, not disappearing, but becoming living stone, becoming fossils, becoming a story preserved for tens of millions of years. Those skeletons told everything: where they lived, how they moved, their size, the scars of narrow escapes, and even their final moments lying together. They became evidence of an era, waiting for another species, humans, to appear, dig them up, and quietly marvel. They once lived here. Thousands of years later, sunlight fully penetrated. The sky turned blue again. Seas returned to turquoise. Forests regrew thick and green. Mountains revealed new layers of stone. The earth was no longer the dark place of the Chicxulub day. It had been reborn, stronger, more diverse, younger, and in the mountain winds, in the new forest canopies, one might hear, softly, the echo of Edmontosaurus footsteps, a gentle species that lived resiliently to the very end. Dinosaurs vanished, but life did not. It merely changed form, changed its dwelling, changed its story. Dinosaurs did not truly die. Their legacy lived on in modern birds, in new ecosystems, and in the fossils humans would eventually discover. And the story of Edmontosaurus, the last among the final days of the Cretaceous, became a beautiful, sad, and deeply human chapter in the history of the planet. When you look at an Edmontosaurus fossil today, you are not merely looking at stone. You are looking at a life that lasted decades, a herd that lived and loved its world, an era that once shone brightly and then faded, and the transition between the old and the new. And somewhere within that rock, the past whispers softly and warmly, "We lived, and through our death, a new world was born."